What's up guys, it's RIFLEX, and I know it's been a really long time since I have made a video, but I got so many comments, so many very specific comments asking me to narrow in on specific things that maybe I went over a little bit too fast in past tutorials, so I decided, hey, why not come back and make another one for you guys, so that is what I'm doing now. So I've been looking into comments on past videos and noticing the common trend of beginner to intermediate audiences when it comes to workflow inside Adobe products such as After Effects and Premiere Pro. So the beginning of this tutorial will be for the less experienced users watching my videos. If this does not apply to you, you find that you are more advanced, you don't need help setting up and using After Effects, then you may skip to the displayed time in the video. So to kick things off, I will be giving my own personal tips, which are not required for the sake of this video, but I find very useful, and you may too, to keep yourself organized, prevent footage loss, and filling up that very important hard drive that you have. I'm also not going to go into it too much, but as you all know, recording your desktop at a decent to high quality can be a challenge for some people. So I'm going to give you an example of what you should be using if you have an NVIDIA graphics card. I know some of you do not, so I will also go into a few alternatives that you can use which work pretty much just as well and are free. Okay, so here we are in NVIDIA Shadowplay, which I will link in the description if you do not have yet. Once you have GeForce Experience opened, head over to this page, make sure you have in-game overlay enabled, and click Settings. This will give you all your recording settings. You can scroll up and down, change picture settings, change your keybinds. But when we're looking into storage place, click Recordings. You'll see where they save. Make sure these save to places where you have lots of space for all that excess video to build up. It's important to know if you have a hard drive and an SSD, because if you have only an SSD, you may run out of space quickly. If you have only a hard drive, you don't need to worry about where you're saving all your footage, but if you have both, make sure you're saving your footage to your hard drive, as it will have way more space. You should use your SSD predominantly for application installs and your operating system, not your data backup. So as you can see here, I am currently recording using GeForce Experience, and you guys can really just play around with this, figure out how you want to use it for yourself. There's a really neat highlight feature, so if you get a kill in a game, it'll automatically save that for you, that certain time period that you set it to. Also, keybinds can be really useful. I have mine specialized because I have a gaming keyboard, so I have special keys set up on the left hand side where I can open and close the overlay, start and stop recordings, and also save timestamps when I have instant replay enabled, which is good for games that do not yet support highlight mode, such as Apex. Okay, so here we are in Logitech gaming software, and you can see that I have a few binds set up on my keyboard. These are basically just the same binds that you have in your GeForce highlights options, so it'll be really easy for you to just copy those and put them on whatever key you want. Now this will be really helpful when you're in a game. Maybe you're in kind of a stressful situation, you want to start a recording. All you need to do is just click one key and it starts recording. That would be the primary reason to use these. If not, then you may not even need to worry about this at all. Alright, so heading right into project and storage management, you can see that I have an SSD and a hard drive. Now my hard drive is significantly larger than my SSD, so I will always be saving all my data to my hard drive. Okay, now for me at least, I have a special recordings folder positioned in my hard drive where everything gets exported to from GeForce Experience. And for me at least, when I record a clip that I like and I know I'm going to use in my next video, I will just take that straight out of my recordings folder and put it into my project files so I don't accidentally delete it or just lose it. For the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to be making a new folder for all my projects instead of going to my normal one. And once you're in that folder, I like to organize my videos starting off with a number so they stay nice and neat in order of date and time made. So I'm going to name this video tutorial. And then once you're in that, this is where you're going to be putting all your audio, video, and sources. So start off by making a video folder, then make an audio folder. And then what I like to do is right click, new, and then add a text document. Name this whatever you want. I just like to name it links. It's nice to start off by writing down the song name, and then below that, paste the link. It doesn't matter if you're just using a song. You can do this with videos, artwork, any other pieces in your video that people may claim to be theirs and get frustrated about. And then when you go to upload your video, you'll already have everything set up for you. All you'll need to do is just paste it into your description and you're good to go. And finally, if you do not have an NVIDIA graphics card and are not able to use this software, alternatives include Action, Bandicam, OBS. OBS is widely loved by a lot of people, however, it may not work for you if it runs your GPU at 100% 3D renderer, especially when you're in Fortnite, which is really intensive on your GPU. Action and Bandicam are different than OBS because they're more CPU intensive, so it'll allow you to run your game at high frames and high resolution, and it'll record the same quality, it'll just run a different part of your computer. However, Action and Bandicam do cost a little bit if you want to run them without a watermark. That's why OBS would be better, and if you're going to use OBS, then I recommend using Streamlabs OBS. It's just set up different, it just runs smoother. Well, congratulations if you made it through that entire part. Now is a good time to start getting into the actual editing process. Okay, so here we are in a new After Effects project, and the first thing I'm going to come up here and do is create a new composition. Let's just name this main. Set width and height. Frame rate, I'm going to do 30 frames per second. This shouldn't be 60 if you're going to go for like a smooth cinematic edit. And I'm going to set my duration to 1 minute. Okay, now you've had your new composition set up. You can see right here that you are in your composition. This is where you're going to put layers, put all your videos, and okay, when you're putting all of your videos into After Effects, sometimes they can get a bit clustered. You might lose which ones you've already used. So I'm going to start off by making 2 new folders. That was a subfolder. I'm going to go back, Control Z, and I'm going to start by renaming my first folder Videos. Make a new folder and label this audio. Just in this, clicked on nothing. I'm going to right click import file. So here's all my videos. I'm going to go ahead and import, drag it into videos folder, and now when you click the down arrow, you will see all of your videos. Same thing for audio, just import files. I'm going to go back. Under audio, these are all my audio things. I've already picked them out. Just some basic sound effects for us to use. I'm going to import all of these and put them straight into the audio tab. Starting off, we have our background song, and yes, I know it's X. It just had a really nice beat. This one's actually non-copyrighted because it's a remix, so you can use this if you want. I'll actually link everything in the description like I always do. The first thing I'm going to do is show the waveform so we can see when it hits, and that's when we're going to want to start our edit. So you can see it kind of builds up for 30 seconds. Alright, so right here lined up, let's just go ahead and see what this sounds like. Alright, that's going to start a little soon. Maybe we want a little bit more of an intro. So, just try to picture this in your head. Okay, see, that goes pretty good for me. I'm going to go ahead and start it there. And a lot of you had questions about what I'm about to do in other tutorials, which is this. I'm pushing Alt and then left bracket. Now once we have our trimmed up video, it's always nice to give it a little bit of a fade in. This is just the basic stuff. Don't crank this to absolutely 0 because you will realize that if you look at the graph, if I crank this all the way down to 0, it takes so long to get up that it's actually just going to be dead silent up until right about here, and then you'll start hearing it, which we don't want. So go back to the first keyframe and don't go all the way down to 0. I'd do something like, let's just do -25. Let's keep it big, nice, rounded numbers. Alright, so here we go. Yeah, it's nothing much, just a little bit of a fade in. I didn't realize that I wasn't recording, so you can see that I already went through and added a bunch of markers on the layer for lining up with the audio. It'll just simplify the process. You definitely don't need to do this, but if you want to do this, you have a key on your keyboard that sets the markers, and if you don't know what that is, just go up here, edit, keyboard shortcuts, and this will be all your shortcuts for After Effects, and I have mine bound over here on the little star key, as you can see, and that's pretty much that. Okay, so it's time to start editing the video. Under the videos folder, you have all your videos. I started off with a few. I just named them B-roll, so I'm going to be starting off with these, and if you double click them, it'll actually open up into a little composition right here. I wanted to start right here. I think the movement goes smooth. And I might not even use this. I always record a lot of clips. So this little section right here I could use probably B-roll 1. Okay, this whole shot is smooth, so I'm going to mark it here. And I want the output to be right here. Right there. Alright, so I've just gone ahead and chosen the clip I want to start with, and I'm going to click it and drag it into the top layer and the composition. So I gotta see how many. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I might just do 3. I'm going to stretch this and delete this first marker. And I'm going to stretch this clip for this duration right here. And alright, for you beginners out there, what I'm about to do might be a little confusing. I'm going to actually do Control D on my keyboard and make a few more layers. If you did not know this already, the layers up here at the top where my mouse is are on top and will cover layers beneath them, like these ones down here and these ones down here. So if I have this layer up here, and I'm going to change it so you can see what I mean. You can see that this layer, how it's all out of shape on top of the bottom one. You can see it above it and not underneath it. And if this is the other way around, you won't be able to see it at all. So when I'm making adjustment layers and adding like effects, just like this simple rule, adjustment layers work the same. They need to be on top of the layers that you want to have the effect you put on the adjustment layer, or you will not see anything change. So what I'm going to do is enable time remapping. So you can right click your layer, click the time option right here, and then enable time remapping. I'm on Windows, so Control, Alt, and T on my keyboard will also do the same thing. Okay, now you can see this keyframe out here. That's because I already trimmed my video like you saw earlier, and that's how long the video would have been if I did not trim it. So we want it to start here and end right here with these frames. So I'm going to hold shift and go to the end of my video so it snaps. I'm going to click on the keyframe button. I'm going to go to the very start of the video and click the keyframe button again, deleting the final one. Now we have our timepiece selected, and we can basically move these keyframes around, shorten them, stretch them, and it'll make the video play faster or slower. So if I stretch it out, you can say it'll play slower than if I put it in. You can see the difference. And since we want it between these two, I'm going to stretch it all the way in and hold shift so that it snaps. I'm going to go to that little marker by holding shift so it snaps again, and I'm going to click Alt and right bracket. Alt right bracket on the keyboard. Alt left bracket would trim it the other way. So if I click Alt left bracket, it trims it the other way, as you can see. So what you want to do now, since you have this sped up, is you want to give it a little bit of velocity. So I'm going to click right here, and if you can't see these keyframes, it's really easy. Just click on your layer, and you can either go down through these little drop down menus, or you can just click U on your keyboard. It's a shortcut, and it'll open them right here without all the extra tabs to look at like this. Select them so that they're both blue. I'm going to click F9, which is the same thing as right clicking keyframe and clicking easy ease, and you'll see you'll get a little hourglass. I'll zoom in right here on the timeline viewer thing. Okay, so I have two little hourglasses. If you click the graph editor right here, this is looking at your keyframes. And since we're on time remapping, this is the velocity of your video. And in simple terms, the steeper the slope looks, the faster your video will play. For keyframing this part, we want to actually go in fast by dragging this little toggle up. And I want to drag this one down. So we're making kind of a vertical S curve. Okay, so it's kind of getting the look. I'm just going to pull this up a little bit more. Something that you want to keep in mind is when you're doing this, don't make this part too flat in the middle right here, because your video will actually be playing so slow motion that it'll be super glitchy like this. See, now this is 60 FPS and I'm playing it back at 30, so you can't really tell as much. But if I go a little bit more dramatic, you'll be able to see. Yeah, obviously, right here you can see the individual frames as it doesn't look smooth. Okay, so next is to basically just repeat this process, lining up with the rest of the videos in an order that should make sense to the video. So you don't want to have like the shot and then show the guy running up to take it. Obviously, you want to have him have all the B-roll shots of him running up to take the shot before it actually happens. And do it in a nice order so that it keeps screen direction. So if it's spinning to the left, for example, your next scene probably should not be spinning to the right. You can give it like a flip and make it look like it's spinning to the left. Just keep a screen direction and flow like I'm doing here. See, this scene is moving up to the left when he hops on the zip line, and the scene before was actually rotating to the left. So it basically just helps the viewer's eyes stay focused on what's going on. And this isn't like necessary, but it just makes it look a lot better. Okay, so what you're seeing now is just a sped up video of me editing the rest of the montage, and I'm just putting a bunch of clips together following the steps I showed you before, and I'm going to come back to show you some different unique stuff that I have not gone over yet when I'm done. Okay, so I went ahead a little bit, skipped the boring stuff for you guys, and now what we're going to do is work on this trigger pull that I have in mind. So I'll just show you the change that I made. I made everything look a little bit smoother. I didn't put any other effects on it besides the remapping that we were doing though, so this is what it looks like. Okay, nothing super special, and this clip looks really bland. It doesn't really move like the other pictures look kind of natural in how there's a little bit of camera wobble. This one's really still though. So what the goal here is to make it look like he's pulling his finger back. So all I've done is right clicked, pre-composed, and then selected these options, the same here, and it made a long brown layer, and I cut it down to this area this big. And by the way, your layers may not look this color. I just remembered now, I actually changed mine, so yours could be looking a little different. However, it's probably the same thing. It's fine. The color really doesn't mean anything at all. You can change it in your settings. Anyways, when I double click this, or I'll just click over to it, this is basically zoomed in, and this is what is happening inside that. So I'll go back here, and this is the base layer. You can see there's a little bit of kickback, so I'm going to go to the very start where it kicks back, and right here I'm going to duplicate the layer, Control D. So what I'm going to do is make a background layer, background solid, and I want to make it this exact blue color. So this will work well with this because it's such like a solid color. I'm pretty sure there's no like gradient or anything, so it should look good when I remove the background. So starting here, I'm just going to zoom it in a little bit so we can get more precise. Frame one with this, I'm going to click on the pen tool. We want to zoom in, and I'm actually going to map around the finger. So the way I want to do this is going up around the edges. I'm going to try to make this pretty accurate, even though it'll go quick and may not be noticeable. Okay, so this is what it looks like now, and I'm going to click on my layer below, the cyan layer, the background, the filler color. So now all we have is this finger above this layer. So what I want to do is actually click T. I'm going to turn down the opacity on this layer a little bit so I can see what I'm doing here. And I am going to crop this. I'm going to crop this layer out by clicking on the pen tool again. And this time I just want to make sure we have just enough to work with and not enough to really get lost, or not get lost, but cover the rest of the gun. Okay, I've cropped it down to pretty much just the part that we're going to be working with now. And if I turn this back up to 100% opacity, it now is the new background on this layer. And I should be able to move my finger around. Yep, okay, that is what we want. Okay, so now that we have the finger in motion, this is going to look a little bit weird. It's not going to look perfect, but I'm going to select my my little puppet pin positioning tool up here. And since we don't want this part of the trigger to move as little as this part, or up by the base, we're going to add a pin out here, a pin out by the thumb, a few pins over here, but still inside of our positioning layer. As you can see, like, you see these little boxes that represent the outside. Give it a little sketch. So it's still inside our workable zone in here. And I'm basically just setting these are going to be the firmer points that hold the finger in place, except we do want the tip of the finger to be moving, and this part will stay a little bit more still up here. There is an easier way to do this. So we have the puppet bend and all these special tools. They get kind of complicated, a little bit confusing though. I'm not especially used to working with them, but you can see here, if I pull this, it'll kind of bend the finger. These kind of just hold it still. I just put these here because I'm lazy. And we're going to give it a little tip bend. So just like keyframing, what we're going to do is click down here, the little drop down, effects, puppet, and then mesh. We're going to have all of our different options down here. All right, so here are all of our pins, and to find what pin we are clicked on, Should select it. Okay, so this is pin 2, and it is already keyframed. That means I guess you could click U. Anyways, you're gonna get brought to this page anyway. So here we go. Position 2. We're gonna go forward a few keyframes, actually to the end. So right here. Oh, and before we actually do this, and if you're getting confused, I'm sorry, but before we actually do this, I'm gonna select this layer too. Go back to the start. Okay, I'm gonna go into the transform under position, set it right there. I'm gonna go forward a few frames. Remember to fix it. Okay, if it's snapping weird, just click and hold Control, it'll turn off snapping. So bring that right back here. Okay, and then I'm gonna go one more time to the very end. Oh, that is not the transform. We want to actually transform it. There we go. Okay. Right up there at the end. So now this follows with it, and our mask of the thumb does not follow. So here's the mask. What we want to do here, masks. Let's go ahead and mask path right here. Skip forward a little bit, and there's a way to do it which moves the entire mask. Yep, double click it, and right there, move it up, keep it real, go to the very end. I'm gonna move it up one more time, line it up. Okay, perfect, just like that. You can see that we have a little bit of an overlay. Is that coming from this layer? It is. Alright, so just change this a little tiny bit. No, we don't even need it that far anyways. There you go, right in front of it. Okay, perfect. I might be changing pin 9 a little bit. I'm not sure. Okay, so we got the main pins is 1, 2, and 9. I'm going to go forward a few frames. And now this is where it's going to get a little tricky. I'm going to pull this down. See if this is possible. Pop up pin number 2. I'm going to pull it in. See, and this is going to look really, really bad for just a second here. 9, 8. They're all keyframed, so I'm going to pull these in. Just work like this until it looks, you know, kind of natural, to the point where we won't be able to tell. We're going to speed up the video, maybe add a little bit of blur anyways. And I'm just going to move on because the chance of you having to edit the same exact clip of this is absolutely 0 unless for some reason you download my video. So let's just get back into the actual editing. Okay, so I've gone ahead and kind of reorganized some of the videos a little bit and just touched it up to make it a little bit smoother, make it flow, put them in the right order. And so I'll give you guys a little pre-render real quick. Alright, so it's not bad. Something I want to look into real quick is this little trigger pull, right? Like zoomed up, it doesn't look too bad. It looks a little bit squishy, but when it's zoomed out, it pretty much just looks like just a normal boring trigger pull, but it doesn't have any flow like the videos. So I went ahead and actually added a few transform options to the composition to make it look like, you know, it tilts down and goes into the shot a little bit more naturally. Kind of goes down a little bit, pulls the trigger. Even better, once I add motion blur, you won't see the glitch at all in the trigger. So what I mean by that is, here, let me just create a new adjustment layer, new, adjustment layer. And this is really long. I'm going to put it down a little bit to keep it in the area. And we don't want this to cover much, just the little transition. So I'm going to go on the transition, and I'm actually going to click page down. Okay, I clicked page down 15 times, so that's 15 frames forward. Just to get an idea for how long it'll take, that's about half a second because we're doing 30 frames per second. And that's how much 15 frames look like. So I'm just going to take that and go right over here and cut the other side as well. It doesn't exactly matter, but I just did it for a scale reference. Don't want to make it too big, too small. So on this, I'm going to add a motion tile effect. And I'm also going to add transform. These two will give us enough effects to do what we want to do. So the motion tile, the purpose of this, I'll go over real quick. And if I go down my transform, you'll see let's just make the scale smaller. Okay, so there's a black box around the edge, right? The video is not as big anymore as the frame. So I'm going to go up to the motion tile, and you can see output width and height. You can actually change these to make them bigger. So I'm going to go up and change the output up, right? Just big enough. And you'll see it like reflects over. It doesn't look very good. If you click this mirror edges and look at the middle, from somebody looking at this without interpreting what you actually did to it, it looks just kind of like a big warpy image, which edges keep going on. And now this is what you want to use if you have to zoom an image or something like that and it doesn't fill up the full frame. This is what you want to do to kind of give it that fullness look. You don't want to have just black bars, right? That doesn't look good. Okay, so we're not actually going to be doing it like this. So I'm still going to mirror the edges, but we don't need the output height on. I'm just going to change that to 100, keep it at 0, and I'm actually going to scale this back up to 100% because we're not going to be changing the scale for this. So we're going to start it here, and I'm going to turn up my output width. Let's put that to maybe 300, put it 3 times width, and now down here under transform options, or I'm just going to leave that open, the position, this is what we're going to be changing. So I'm going to keyframe at this beginning, I'm going to go to the end, one before the end actually. This doesn't have effect on the layer right here, as you can see, but if you go back one more, now it has still effect on all the layers below it. So I'm going to actually go down into my option. I'm going to click U on this layer, and I'm going to add another keyframe by clicking this little button over here. Okay, now I'm going right to the transition. So right here is the frame before, and if I go forward one more frame, you can see it's the next scene. So focusing on this one, I'm going to pull my layer really far over to the left, almost to where you can see it again. Okay, right about there. I'm going to go forward one frame. I'm going to set this back to 960. This is just the basic one. Now we're back in the middle again. Okay, we're back in the middle, except you can see the next clip. So I'm going to go back one frame. Now we're over to the left again, and forward one frame. So this is the guy, and we're going to have it slide in from the opposite side so it looks like it was a smooth and continuous transition from this video to the next. So I'm going to slide this the opposite direction until you can pretty much see the character. We don't want to do too much. Select all 4 of them and click F9 on the keyboard. This will ease them. You can see how they are the little hourglasses. So our video looks like this. Fabulous. You want to click on these and go into your graph editor again and right click, edit speed graph. This is important for this one. You don't want to unvalue graph because we're not doing the same types of edit. So I'm going to select both of these and let's give this a little drag over, and then pull this one across. No, deselect, pull this little one across. And we want to make it look like it goes slow and then goes steep like that. We're doing that on both of these. And it'll give it like a speed up and then ease in effect. You'll see what I mean. Let's see kind of crossover. Right? Just adds a little bit of smoothness to it, I guess. For changing the colors a little bit, this one already is a pretty vivid shot, but stuff like this, it's really, really plain. You want to change that up. So I'm going to go back to my effects and presets. We're going to search up an effect called, let's throw on curves. And I'm just going to show you guys one of these. Alright, so you're given an RGB option up here, which is red, green, and blue, which are the 3 pixel colors. And if you click it onto red, changing this curve will only change the red in your picture, and so on with the green, blue, and alpha, which is transparency layer. You probably don't need to worry about that. Okay, so back on RGB though, if you want to give it a little bit more contrast, drag this up and drag the base down, and this will make the shadows a little bit darker, the brights a little bit brighter. This is on RGB, so all the layers. If you want to go over to blue, we have a lot of blue in this layer, you can see. Maybe if we set this where it's at, by clicking, it'll add a little marker, and then dragging the shadows down a little bit will get rid of a little bit of the blue around the ladder. So alright guys, so the entire first part of that video was a few months ago actually, and I was really sick and kind of got a little bit off track, and I decided that I'd rather just come back and re-record some of the editing and just go over what I've already done than show you me actually trying to talk and explain it. So here we are in the video right now. Okay, so basically what I want to show you is I haven't really done a whole lot, except you did notice on this character there's a little flying around white streak right here. So I decided instead of making a ridiculous like 30-40 minute video, I'm just gonna break these up into a few parts and actually show you some individual effects, like posting separate videos on my YouTube channel plus more content as well. So okay, and so from earlier I actually put on a few little transitions. So this is a little warp in, and of course we already did this one and so forth. The trigger tilts and shoots. I've actually gone ahead and selected all my layers. I just clicked Control A on my keyboard. You can just select them like clicking the bottom, shift, click the top, either way. I right clicked pre-composed and basically just opened a new composition, renamed it, and the name you put here will be the name of this layer with all your stuff in it. So I just named it pre-comp1 and it put it into that folder, and this is my new main. I'm gonna go ahead and remove all of these layers real quick. And so here's what to do here. I have my basic video, the same video as you saw on the other screen with no changes, and there are 4 adjustment layers, including an audio amplitude file right here. So if you want to make your beat flash to the music, or if you want to make a flash to your beat, then all you really need to do is, I recommend boosting up the bass channel. So if you go over into your effects and presets and type bass and treble, you can drag over this effect onto your pre-comp, which is this, and has the music file in it. So if you're a little confused which one to make, just click down audio waveform and it'll show that you have your whole song here. So all this will do is make the bass more defined, so it's not flashing at like the high pitch, maybe the hats in your song, something like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn down the treble to, like, let's say -20. I'm gonna turn the bass up. Let's just crank it to 100, and hopefully you'll be able to notice a difference. I don't think it actually shows, but it'll make it more defined. So by clicking Control D on my computer, I'm gonna duplicate the layer, and you honestly might want to do it even one more time. Okay, so you have this, you have all 3 bass and trebles. Let me turn these off. Yeah, no, it doesn't show you on the waveform. So I have these 3 here, and then from this point, you want to go to the beginning of your composition line, right click, and then you want to click Keyframe Assistant, convert audio to keyframes. It's going to make you a new audio amplitude layer. I already have one, so I'm going to go back. Oh, by the way, before you continue, go back to your original audio and make sure you delete these. This was just for the audio amplitude. So going on to the audio amplitude, it gives you a left channel, right channel, and both channels. If we click down here, not transform, you can see them. So there's keyframes on each one, which will basically just signal whether it's going up or down. If I scrub along, you can see, I just pointed at my computer, you can see this go, like, you can see this bouncing up and down. So it's hanging around that, and then as the bass hits, let's go to a later part. Yeah, it'll jump up to like 20, 90, maybe even 100. Okay, so that's the loud part in your video. I'm gonna go ahead and delete my right and left channel, leaving us with the both channels. And then all I did here was make a new adjustment layer, of course, on top of my pre-composition so the effects show on it. And then let's just type in brightness and contrast just so I can give you guys a little demo on what I did here. Brightness, and keep it like that. So clicking into your adjustment layer, going to your effects, brightness and contrast, you will have your little keyframe toggles, and instead of just clicking on it and making a little time keyframe, you want to actually hold Alt on your keyboard, and it'll open you up with this little option right here. This may look confusing, just follow with me here. Drag this little whip down onto the both channels slider. It'll put the effect in. If you click out of it, now your brightness, you can kind of see it a little bit if you look up in the sky. Your brightness will actually flicker to your video, and if you want it to affect a little bit more, this is like simple math. So if I come in here, add a set of parentheses, first put the little star key, add a set of parentheses, so that means multiplied by, and we want it to be multiplied by, let's say 3. Click back out. So now instead of boosting it up to, you know, maybe like 100, it'll boost it up to 300, so you'll see a bigger difference. Going back a little bit, looking up in the sky, well, I guess I turned it up so bright that my brightness and contrast actually broke a little bit because it only goes so high. Okay, here we go. Oh, I accidentally had an extra parenthesis. Okay, so now you can see there's like a bigger difference. It plays with the music. So right as the shot, there's, okay, that's very overpowering. And it looks a little weird. So that's one of the reasons maybe you wouldn't put it by 3. You can also do it multiplied by stuff like decimals. So 0.3 would make it weaker, so you won't see it as much, but it's still there. Anyways, I've already gone ahead and done this. So I just made, let's see what layer I just made here. I just made this adjustment layer. I'm going to delete that. I'm also going to delete this audio amplitude. You can see I have the other one here. I've done the same exact thing with this layer. And you can also do this by adding a wiggle effect onto your adjustment layer. So it'll give your video a little bit of a shake, a little bit of an organic wiggle instead of just being so cinematically harsh. What I mean by that is like so smooth with no wiggle. So if I turn that back on, you'll see it has a little bit of a shake to it. You can definitely see that. Okay, I'm going to turn all of these on, and the reason I have so many of these is because each one is a different effect which I want done in a different order. So I don't want motion blur, color correction all to be stacked on one layer, because basically they just kind of interfere with each other and it might give you a weird distorted look. So on the first layer here, I have the basic After Effects wiggle and transform wiggle effects, which I have turned down to be a little bit slower because they come default pretty quick. Under this layer, I have RSMB, which is a plugin, or you can just use, you can type in motion blur, and you can use things like force motion blur, other just After Effects free motion blur plugins you can find online. Anyways, what this does, if I zoom in here, you can see it actually takes a lot of memory to do this, but if I turn off RSMB, it looks like this, and it knows what's moving when I turn it back on, so it will give it a very blurred effect. That scene was moving quick, so it obviously would have a lot of blur. You want to turn this down. I like the settings that I have now. Maybe actually 0.5 would be good. Maybe a little less. Maybe 0.45. Okay, 0.45 is good. And on this layer, if you go to the end, I actually have it turning up right here. So this will fade it to black and white. I have it keyframed so that basically the opacity of this layer, instead of the strength, you could also keyframe the strength. It would do the same thing. I just keyframe the opacity so that as it goes into the second like scene mood, it kind of goes black and white, and then of course it goes back out right here, just so it gets brighter again. And on my top layer, I have a fade, tint, and this is basically just one effect. It adds a flashing appearance, except this doesn't come automatically. If I click U on my keyboard and zoom in here, you can see that I keyframed when I want it to flash on every single one. So that's how I got the cool flashing effect. And if I show you the entire thing without RSMB right now, because that takes a rather long time to pre-render out, it looks something like this. And then you find you might not want so much of this transform, or no, not so much of this wiggle. It's only 9%, maybe 6%. I might want to change the wiggle amount down. Let's do like 30. That's a lot better. Okay, so now it has a more subtle wiggle and doesn't look like the entire screen is warping. Okay, and on top of this, if you guys don't want it to be weird and capping edges like this black up here, I just went ahead and added a motion tile effect, and be aware that these effects apply in the same order that your layers in your composition do, meaning the ones at the top appear over the ones at the bottom. So if I were to put this motion tile at the bottom, it would give a different effect than it does up here. And so, turning on RSMB, and also, I forgot to go over this, I added an organic effect, an organic dust effect, which looks like this. You can just see it's kind of dust particles. And the way I got this transparent is by, when I drag it in, you have all these options here. If you don't, there's 3 little toggles down in the bottom, which let you turn them on. So, it would be this one right here. And I changed it from normal to screen since it's a black background. And when you composite it on top of a layer, you can see here that the little particles, the particles that float up. And now if I turn this back on like something else like lighten, they'll be a little darker because screen is primary for this. But if I put this on, let's say multiply, it will do the opposite, and this assumes that you want the black to be present, you don't want the white to be there, except it kind of just messes up, makes the whole thing dark. So screen is what you want to do if you have a black background video. And turning this all on, I'll give you guys another render. And that's pretty much it. I went through and added a little bit more color correction on the character, so I'll actually go into that. I used an effect called Looks, which comes with the Magic Bullet suite, and basically I didn't put on a renoiser. I used a default one though, which over here on the left, you have all of these, and I found that this little setup I automatically or manually made, should I say, with just the basic effects that it gives you. I've done some just simple tweaks to it. Same curves editor. You can do this in just the basic curves editor. It's just more controlled, a little bit more organized in this. I just copied and pasted it onto each one and tweaked it so that each video would look a little bit more enhanced. So if this one was lighter and I pasted it on here, this one was darker, I would obviously tweak them opposite to make them about neutral to each other. So that's all that I have in this editing project, and I will once again play the entire video. Alright, now that is that. Just remember, before you post on YouTube, it is kind of crucial to name your actual video file on your computer, what you will be naming it. And what I mean by this is put in keywords, like put in your name, put in just extra filler words that are around the topic what you're posting on. So if I'm posting this on editing, I might label it like Adobe, After Effects, RIFLEX, editing tutorial, something like that on your computer. And then when you post it, it'll automatically it'll be easier for your friends and you to find it on the internet once you post on YouTube, especially if you get less views. So it'll actually boost your views up a little bit. At least it has for me. It's worked pretty well. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. If you've made it this far, that's a big congratulations to you. I'll be posting shorter things in the future, more like specific on certain effects instead of this huge elaborate video, which I have been working on for way too long. So anyways, thank you guys for watching. If you got this far and enjoyed, please leave a thumbs up, comment some suggestions, and subscribe. Turn on that bell to get notified when I post my next videos. I'm sorry I've been away for a while. I've had a lot of schoolwork and just generally busy, but you know, summer's coming up, so expect a lot more posts. Peace out.